ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
We're looking always for top opposition, challenges that can make it difficult for us, and we had that against Canada, and we expect the same against the US. So really just playing opposition that are tough, that have quality. Here we are up against a host nation, so we know the quality they have. They've got a wonderful manager. They've got players that are playing at the peak of their powers in the best leagues in the world. So we want to challenge ourselves, and that's why we happily took on these two games.
Australian coach Tony Popovic, he is going to get what he's looking for against the USA, a big test. Hey, don't say it too loudly, but this Socceroos team, they might be really, really quite good. 11 straight games without a loss under the manager. 8 of those victories inside a year to the World Cup on the eve of a huge clash with the United States. What we want to know is, are we seeing a boom or is this a green and gold bubble? In Tony's words, we're getting a test. I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily. Andy Harper is a former Australian footballer, one of the best analysts in the sport. You would have seen his work on Paramount Plus and Channel 10. Andy, we're talking Socceroos. They play World Cup hosts the USA in Denver Wednesday. The Australians haven't lost in a while, a long while. 12 games, 11 under this manager. Why are they on such a run?
Well, a large part of that has to be sheeted home to the coach, Tony Popovic. I mean, he has built a coaching CV, a very impressive coaching CV, and pretty much everywhere he's gone, certainly with Australian teams, less glorified in Greece and Turkey, but certainly in the A-League, at the Wanderers, at Perth, at Melbourne Victory, he put in a system, an expression, an extension of his really tough ex-player persona. And now with the Socceroos, very similar trend lines. The response from the players, very, very similar across all those different organisations and competitions. And what we've got is a remarkable start, history-breaking start to a national team coach's tenure, and long may it continue.
The win over Canada was an interesting case study because I feel like we've seen versions of that in this run. I mean, they could have been a long way behind at halftime, but instead they hang in and they steal it. I just wanted to know, how much do you think is that fortune, or how much is that the instilling of a mentality, a willingness to kind of stay in the fight?
I think it's more the latter than the former. Of course, in top-level sport, certainly a game of fine margins like football, where there are so many variables at play, then luck, if you can call it that, plays its role. But, you know, that abuts against the famous old saying, you know, the harder I work, the luckier I get. I just think the form line to which we just referred of Tony Popovic's coach is too strong to ignore and just put this as lucky.
Holding on, it's a great ball from Motura Irikunda, who dived in and has stolen a goal for the Socceroos against the run of play. Well, there is the individual quality of the Socceroos.
Nevertheless, there's another form line which we shouldn't ignore, and that is through the unbeaten streak to start his time as coach. Most of those games, if not all of them, the Socceroos have been very much behind the 8-ball by half-time. A sequence of really underwhelming first-half performances, which is a cause for concern. But the flip side of that is a really positive response from coach and then players in the second half to get these wins. Now, the Canada game was a little bit of an outlier again, because really on chances created, quality chances created, then Canada should have won that match.
Miller's cross, Schaffelberg will get there. Oh, miraculous save from Izzo. Well, they will feel they should be back on level terms. Paul Izzo with a simply stunning save.
But, you know, that's not the way football works. And what we've seen with Tony Popovic is, you know, the Popovic Iron Dome, if you like, which is him, this really strong defensive unit, up for players' goalkeeper position, but Paul Izzo's done well when he's been given the chance, and the 3 central defenders in front of him at this point, Milos Degenek, Cam Burgess and Alessandro Turcati, the youngster who's been given the captaincy for the last 2. Those 3 have been amazing. So whichever has fallen against the Socceroos, by the time opponents have delivered the ball into the danger arc, just outside the 6-yard box in front of our goal, incorporating the penalty spot, that sort of territory. Mate, those 3 plus goalkeeper have just been fantastic. And the rest of the team has rallied. And if I can use the word luck, they've ridden their luck. And then he's got some young guys up front who have got a point to prove, and they're unscarred by any history or or any expectation, burden of expectation to this point at least. And I'm talking to Mohamed Touré and Nestor Irankunda, and they're combining for goals to win games recently, and long may it continue. It's not going to. I should temper things. You know, football is like the financial sector. There are bull markets and bear markets, and it's very much a bull market for the Socceroos at the moment. The circumstances can contrive to create a bear market, and we'll see how they go then.
Yeah, given their pedigree, this game against the United States, it feels like it's shaping as a litmus test for the Socceroos. And Tony Popovic spoke about that a lot in his press conference today. Is this the moment, do you think we get an indication as to whether this team is a boom or a bubble?
You know, I think we've had a few of them, Pat. So the gate can't fall one way or t'other after this game, except to say that, you know, if the bubble is going to burst or the market does turn bare in this match and the hemorrhaging of goals is unsightly, then of course, you know, we'll be straightened and Popovic will have to refocus.
You know, we want to keep our run going. We know it'll be difficult. That's why we've taken on this game, and we appreciate the US giving us this opportunity to test ourselves against them.
But I'm not actually expecting that. I mean, I think they're on this trajectory now where every game just builds another layer of protection in the minds of the players, at least. And I'm desperate to qualify for World Cup, so all players are on edge, and he's rotated a lot of players in and out of the squad. So a lot of people are getting a look in and a chance and a sniff, which all adds to it.
I mentioned after the Canada game, we played a 19-year-old and 21-year-old up front. We had a captain at 22. We made a debut at right wing back. It's his first game for Australia.
And you up against them, of course, is the United States. So they're at the beginning, I would say, of their next very fruitful phase as a football nation. But it's been a long beginning, right? The MLS has been going well. They've been exporting a lot of players to the top leagues in Europe and playing in big teams. But at national team level, over the last couple of international cycles, missing World Cups, they just can't stop falling over themselves, Pat. And I'm too far away to offer any reasons as to why, but they've had big credentialed coaches, including now Mauricio Pochettino in charge, great coach, hugely pedigreed at the top level of club football. Translating that to pulling the parts together for the US has just been really elusive for him. I don't know what's going on there. They can't get out of each other's way. They're only going forward from here. It might be incremental and slow to start with the US, but with the population size, the investment in football in that country, the growth of the MLS and the growth of the other competitions underneath the MLS. I mean, the business over there is massive. The national team will reap significant rewards in time. I guess the question to which I don't have an answer is why it's not happening quicker for this current group of players.
They're so interesting and so intriguing, the United States. And I think you kind of can't look at them in a vacuum without what's happening broadly in the United States right now. This is a nation that is all about America first. And I wonder, with all of that, what you've described and what I've described into the mix, is this a nation that would believe that they are contending for this next World Cup that they're about to host?
Well, I think home teams, you create history if you don't get out of group stages and shake a fist. Qatar, well beyond them last World Cup, of course, they got carried out feet first in the first round. Not to be surprising. That's embarrassing for them, nevertheless, but not to be surprised about it from an outside looking in. The US are a different case. A big, way more sports literate public, a lot of attention whilst domestic sports continue during the World Cup. I'm thinking principally Major League Baseball, of course, being a summer sport. The fortunes of the national team are going to be front and centre. The appetite for football is big and growing. They're playing in big municipal stadiums. They're playing in at grounds that all American sports fans know, if in fact it's for NFL, etc. But nevertheless, when the national team runs out on the stadium in New Jersey, Rutherford, New Jersey, etc., they're front and centre. They're the big deal. And their team is good enough to do something, and the fans at home, I think, can push them to some sort of achievement which will reflect the quality of the playing group. But as you said, it's a mystery why they're finding it so hard to get going. I just hope for the sake of the players involved, and indeed, I guess the spectacle, that Pochettino and his team can cough up the fur balls and just get ready to play.
We are framing this whole conversation around the next World Cup, but given the age profile of some of these Socceroos, players like Chirikati, Toure, Iran Kunda, is it actually about the next tournament in Morocco, Spain, Portugal in 2030?
Well, I think it's been a long way, and Socceroos fans are impatient, but developing talent that becomes desirable for the top 5 leagues in the world takes time. I've tried to make this point. You can't just start a competition and 2 years later expect your kids to be playing in the Bundesliga or principally the EPL. You know, you look at that golden generation, Pat, of the World Cup 2006, and we keep talking about how many of those players, most of them, in fact, were getting regular, good, chunky minutes in the big 5 leagues in Europe. And when you go to World Cups, of course, and big tournaments, then that quality comes through. But that generation of players came out of the NSL, which itself started in 1977. So you do the maths, 1977 to 2006. And it's about the same time as the rebirth of the national competition through the A-League. And now here we are going to the World Cup 20 years later. Like, there's a 20-year period. Once you run a competition out of town, once you unpick its infrastructure, once it's been euthanized, once Agent Orange has been poured over it, and a new competition has to seed and get going and then start investing in youth, it's a 20-year turnaround. And I think we're seeing that now.
Well, that's a lovely turn by Riley McGree. The cutback, they're queuing up here. It's Bayic! Unbelievable! They've done it! In the very last minute of the game. Ours is Bayic with his first international goal in 13 years. After all that pressure, has maybe, just maybe, sent Australia to the World Cup in 2026. You cannot write this script.
And I think, to the extent that I'm right, Nestor Irankunda, Jordi Boss, Mohamed Toure in this case, and hopefully a queue of other special athletic talents are on the cusp of getting to this they're at the World Cup, they get picked in this, they play well, really well on the world stage. We'll start seeing these guys move into those top 5 leagues to join Alessandro Chiricati, who plays in Serie A in Italy. And once we achieve that critical mass of our best players playing in the top leagues in Europe, then the fortunes of the national team become more sustainable. Even so, Popovic is unbeaten in 12, so the foundation is good. And then certainly from a spectacle, from a public awareness and from a commercial viewpoint, having players playing the EPL unavoidably bears a lot of fruit at the turnstiles for the Socceroos.
The group get their next test against the United States on Wednesday. Can't wait to see what happens in Denver. Andy, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure, Pat. Good to chat.
Headlines. Staying with football for just a moment because we love a Cinderella story. Cape Verde has qualified for the FIFA Men's World Cup, making them the second smallest nation to do so. The collection of 10 African islands has a population just north of 500,000. That's like Tasmania playing at the World Cup. It's hard enough to get the Apple Isle a team in the AFL. They locked in their place with a 3-0 win over Eswatini, ensuring they top their group. Iceland is the smallest ever nation to play at the tournament. They played in the 2018 edition. The AFL trade period concludes Wednesday night. Things are getting heated. The Swans are understood to have offered Carlton the following for Charlie Curnow: small medium forward Will Hayward, halfback/midfielder Ollie Florent, 2 first-round draft picks. Will the Navy Blues bite? The star forward Curnow still has 4 years left on his contract, so remains to be seen. The ABC website has a rolling blog covering all the action. It'll keep you up to date. Nathan Buckley's next coaching act is here. No, not with Tasmania, with Geelong. The ex-Collingwood coach is joining Chris Scott's staff as an assistant, which is a fascinating move. He gets to upskill himself as an assistant, get a look at the Cats' intellectual property, and then if a job did come along, like in, say, Tasmania, he's had a little tune-up. Hey, maybe he can even build some relationships with players that might want to be part of an expansion club. Maybe I'm getting too conspiracy on it. Regardless, it's pretty interesting stuff. Finally, the NFL season is only 6 weeks old, but we have a coaching victim. Brian Callahan, the man in charge of the Titans, has been fired after his team slumped to a 1-5 record after a nasty defeat to the Raiders over the weekend. The 41-year-old was in his second season with Tennessee. He exits with a 4-19 record. I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily Produced by Phil Pryor. Thanks to Paramount Plus for the extra audio used in this episode.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.